And welcome back to the Cooler Jets podcast for us, Ben
Victory
Blessington
Monday
and Michael Nania. Finally, Victory Monday podcast. We are recording this a little late Monday morning. Had some stuff pop up last night, but we did get a chance to watch the All-22, so maybe this game recap will be a little bit more in depth. Michael, the Jets finally win a game after 3 straight losses, and for the first time this season, they win a game without a catastrophe. Well, we'll see about AVT's injury. We haven't gotten word on that yet, but they tried their best to lose it. It certainly wasn't pretty. A lot of ugly moments in that, but overall, a win is a win, especially on the road, and plenty of good stuff to talk about. So, Michael, I get you're feeling great. This is the most energy I've seen from you in 3 years. So, how are you feeling after the Jets finally steal another win?
I'm feeling good. That was a fun game, and I think before we get into the game, I want to talk a little bit about my mindset watching this game because we'll get to the uniforms. Before this, I started asking you about the Titans powder blue socks.
All right, get to the meat.
Get to the point. But no, like watching this game, like I feel like I'm kind of maturing as a fan watching games.
Proud of you.
Where it's like I'm not getting as down with the low moments, but I'm still enjoying the high moments. Like first half,
I'm not buying that for a second.
It was ugly. Like
I saw your tweets.
Tweets don't reflect my emotions, though. Like, let's put that out there. I'll put some critical tweets out there. That's in my mind, but the emotions on the exterior. Like, I was chill. I was calm. I was watching with my brother, and he was, like, panicking. Like, this is awful. This is the worst defense. What are we doing? And I'm like, chill out. There's plenty of time left in this game. And the Jets come through and win. But I don't know. I mean, you and I both talked about this. You talked about there was a game. Remind me which one it was, but there was a game where you said you had some sort of reaction. I'm not going to say it unless you are okay.
No, I could say it. Jets Bengals. We told on the pod. Jets Bengals 2019. That was my breaking point. I threw a apple broke a mirror in my kitchen.
Yeah. So on accident. Had our moments. Rodgers getting hurt this year at a game you and I were both at, watching that in the end zone right in front of us. So we've kind of developed a little bit, and I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm just going to watch these games and see how they pan out. But when they lose next week, I'm going to come on here and be all depressed.
This is all bullshit. I don't know what you're talking
about. My
usual
usual mopey attitude, but
I'm
trying to get better and just enjoy the highs and not get too low.
It's kind of the opposite for me because I've been very stoic all season through Rodgers' injury, through a blowout loss, through blowing a stupid game to the Patriots. By the way, worst team in football. I can't believe the Jets lost that game, but I'm glad they're terrible. Through last week, which was overall a good game, even though the Jets lost, but penalties and whatever. I've kept my cool. I've been a normal, rational football fan this week, expecting the same thing, but there was a feeling that the Jets season was on the line a little bit here because they lose this game, you fall to 1-4, another AFC loss, a loss to a team you're better than. You got the Eagles on deck. It's just hard to see the Jets fighting through and making the playoffs. So there was a lot of pressure on this game. But again, I kept my cool all the way through up until the end of that first half, where and I knew it was going to happen. As soon as they burned that timeout with 19 seconds, I was like, oh, no, don't burn it there. Like, let's just get up to the line, spike it. Then you have that in your back pocket. Looking back at it, it's like, okay, I guess you had to call the timeout. It was a scramble. But then the fact that, and we can go into this, I guess, now a little bit, there's all good to talk about, but let's just start with the negative. But the fact that that's, as Matt Ryan was calling it, that's an ozone play. That's going to the end zone, and that's going out of bounds. And instead he throws to Uzomah, gets tackled in bounds. They're lackadaisical getting to the line. They don't get the spike off. And that's the first time all season I lost my shit. In fact, I'm limping a little bit today. I'm on the IR right now because I stomped as hard as I could barefoot, and I have a giant bruise in the bottom of my foot. But all season I've been stoic, but that broke. I just was losing my shit at that because it just felt like that those 3 points are going to come back to haunt them. They're going to lose this game. That was so Jets. This coaching staff made fun of Nathaniel Hackett for being one of the worst coaches ever. He had how many bad, boneheaded clock management situations last year, and then they go into Denver and they do one of the worst I've ever seen. I mean, I couldn't handle it, but then luckily they came back out of the second half, got the stop, gave the ball to Breece Hall, who's the MVP from this game, picking up right where he left off. He's finally off the snap count, looks like his old self. What a game from Breece Hall. I don't know where you want to start with this. We started with our emotions watching the Jets game. Let's get into the actual football stuff. We always start with Zach Wilson, and there's a lot to break down there from a solid performance. We could go into
I guess before we get into that, like we can kind of sum up like overall kind of takeaways of like
also,
what
by the way, you like
this
the
game
shirt?
means.
You like the shirt? For people watching on video, you like the little retro logo?
Any 80s logo merch. Any 80s logo merch you can get is a plus.
Using video.
For sure. right now I'm not rocking any 80s merch, but I got one recently that I'm proud of. But yeah, I think overall, like watching the first half of this game, it was rough. I mean, and it's interesting watching the reactions of fans on Twitter, especially because
Especially you.
especially me, which probably encapsulates a lot of it. But it's like the world is ending, even though the team is down by what was the halftime score? They were down by like 5, but whatever it was a close score,
8-13.
like everyone's ready to fire everyone's team will never adjust. This defense is overrated. Hackett has no idea what he's doing, and then the second half comes out, you win the game. Woo! Now everyone's all happy-go-lucky. So it's funny to watch those highs and lows, and maybe I should try to stop tweeting during games because like I pride myself on analyzing things closely and like having
only tweet when things
evidence.
are going bad.
That is the thing, like because like I didn't even say anything about like the good stuff at the end because I'm too busy like celebrating and going crazy watching with the people I'm watching with.
Same with the Chiefs game last week.
Let's go. But I feel like I'm more nuanced about the negatives during the game. So like I feel like this isn't working. Here's something they can do better. But yeah, I think maybe I could do less of that, less tweeting during games because it's also reactionary and there's like 4 quarters to be played. Let's let it play out first and then judge it. But regardless, yeah, I think
you're not changing.
First, I'm not going to change. Not going to change. We'll be right back next week. But no, first half, I think it's fair to say it was underwhelming. There were some areas where they weren't prepared, especially defensively. And, you know, against this Broncos defense, it has been really bad. It did take the Jets longer to get going than I thought that it would take them, and that would be ideal against this caliber defense. But at the end of the day, playing on the road, you had to have this win. They adjusted on both sides of the ball, and they did what they needed to do to win the game. It wasn't pretty. There were a lot of areas they could have executed better, especially considering the opponent they're facing. But regardless, they came through and they did what they had to do to win. So going forward, yes, they are going to have to be better to beat the Eagles next week and to beat some of the other teams on their schedule. But I really like the way that they, look, despite the start not being ideal, adjusted at halftime and made the changes they need to make to come through and win this game in the second half.
Yeah, I think a lot of credit should go to the coaching staff, the defensive coaching staff for the in-game adjustments they've made. Really, the last 2 years, they've been like this. I mean, Samini had that stat. I think it was broken in this game, but they had gone 7 straight games going back to last year without allowing a second half touchdown. Was that you or was that Samini?
I didn't. I can't take credit for that one.
That was Samini. 7 straight games without allowing a second half touchdown. And that's on coaching. That's on getting in the game, seeing what the offense is trying to do and making those adjustments. And Quincy Williams said this after the game that they just got back to the fundamentals a little bit. And that seems to be kind of the common through line as they come out in games. And I guess things get a little too complicated. The thing that I noticed watching this game was that it was a lot of what killed them in 2021 when the defense was so bad. It was like draws, traps, screens, just things that take advantage of an over-aggressive wide 9 front. And the Jets made their adjustments. I mean, they put QB runs. So next week against the Eagles is going to be fun. The Jets made their adjustments. They put a spy on Russell Wilson. They played a little bit more man coverage. They as Quincy Williams said, they got back to a little bit more of the fundamentals of their defense. And they made some personnel adjustments as well that you noted. I mean, Bryce Huff playing a lot more. I mean, we say it every week, but they got to extend Bryce Huff. It's pretty crazy that we had him on the podcast 3 years ago, like before he'd even played a snap for the Jets. And now I would argue he's definitely a top 10 player on this team. He's an impact player. I mean, I don't want to say he's top 5 yet because the Jets actually have a lot of talent for once in my life, but he's a game wrecker. And he's a guy who's proving he can be a starter. The thing is, like, they drafted Jermaine Johnson. They drafted Will McDonald. They extended JFM. They have all these contracts, but I think they have to find a way to bring him back. I mean, Lawson's going to walk next year. That's a conversation for a different day. But the point is that they have to keep Bryce Huff around because he's a true game wrecker, especially when they're playing with the lead, which they haven't done at all this season up until this game, which is, I think, how the Jets kind of saw this season going is they have Rodgers. They're going to be playing with the lead a lot, and they can unleash these pass rushers. Finally, we got to see a little bit in this game, and you see just how dominant this defensive line can be. I don't think it was their best game, but in that 2-minute situation, you saw that when they got to just pin the ears back and get after the passer, I mean, Will McDonald had that awesome spin move to free up Quincy Williams, who's playing at an all-pro level right now. This defense, how do you feel about them this year? Like, I mean, they allow some yards, they get off to slow starts, but they're so damn good in the red zone. So damn good in the red zone. They create turnovers. They get sacks. I mean, they make some big explosive plays. They don't allow the offense to create explosive plays, but they're frustrating because they haven't been amazing on third down. The pass rush at times, especially early in games, hasn't been there. They allow a lot of yards. But when push comes to shove in the second half, they make those adjustments and they're dominant. So how do you kind of feel about how this defense has performed through 5 weeks?
Well, I think it's a tale of two halves, really. I mean, going through the first 4 games, that was the case, and it continued in this game because you look at it now, and they've given up only 1 second-half touchdown the whole season. And first half has been a completely different story. They were in double-digit holes the first 4 games. And then in this game, obviously, the defense was getting moved on a lot, but luckily they held up in the red zone twice, that's been a huge thing for limiting the damage in some of these first halves because they've been so good at holding up with their backs against the wall. But yeah, they just have to find ways to come out of the gates faster. The talent is the same as it was last year, if not better, because they're unleashing Bryce Huff more. Quincy Williams is taking another step. Tony Adams gives you more upside at safety, although he did struggle in this game, which we'll talk about, and has had an up and down start to the season. But the talent is the same, if not better, and we see that in the second half. But first halves do have to be better, and they were able to get away with it in this game. But against the Eagles, against the Chargers, when you play the Bills and the Dolphins again, it's going to be harder to come out of those slow starts to the game. So I would like to see them come out faster because there were some adjustments they made in the second half of this game that, credit for making the adjustments, but I also wonder why they didn't start the game playing that way. Like, for example, we know Russell Wilson was going crazy with the scrambles in the first half. It's been a constant issue this year. Mahomes did it last week. Mac Jones and Prescott had scrambles on them. So it was a big problem, but then second half, they come out in the first third down. They play cover one man. They've Tony Adams as a spy. They lock down in coverage with Sauce, MC2. Hall had a good game filling in for DJ Reed. They won in coverage, and you leave a spy down there, and he was there to stop the Russell Wilson scramble, and they were able to get that third down stop. And then they consistently used the spy throughout the second half, and that helped a lot to shut down the scrambling aspect of Russell Wilson's game. So great adjustment, but at the same time, you wonder, you struggled with that last week. This is part of Russell Wilson's game. Why didn't you start with that? So I think there are some things they could do to come out of the gates quicker because, and even Saleh said it, like he kind of admitted in sort of a subtle dig at Sean Payton for the play calling changes he made in the second half. He's like, they're beating us with the screens and the quarterback runs and some of the things like that. But then they went away from it in the second half. And yes, that's true. But at the same time, if you know that, why aren't you making adjustments to defend that better coming out? Because we all know that's the weakness in this Jets defense. It's pretty consistently the screens, it's the quarterback runs, draw plays, traps, anything that punishes the aggressiveness of the D-line. So I would like to see them come out better. But it was good in this game to see them get the takeaways finally. Some of them are gifts, but at the same time, they still got them. Created a lot of pressure. Adjustments in the second half, great red zone defense. This was a good defense. And the Broncos offense has been okay this year. They're 11th in scoring right now in points per game. So the defense has been the joke in Denver. That's been the most embarrassing part. But Russell Wilson coming into this game was having a huge bounce back season when you look at his production. But they made him look like last year's Russell Wilson in this game. So I like the way they played, but at the same time, I still want to see better starts so they can get back to being the defense they were last year.
Can we just take a moment and talk about Quincy Williams and how damn good he's been?
Since day one, I've been telling people he's going to be a star. Give him time. No one listened to me.
You're a little – well, I will say he's developed. He's developed honestly in a way that I don't think I've seen the Jets develop a player. Maybe there's somebody that's not coming to mind. But usually when the Jets have a good young player, they just come in and they're good or they're like fine and then they become good and they become great. Quincy Williams, he had some big explosive splash plays his first year here in 2021. But as you noted, I mean, he had a lot of misses in the run game. He would have like big explosive plays and then a lot of bad mental lapses. And 2021 was an up and down year.
To be clear, if you don't understand my sarcasm, I was not a Quincy Williams fan in 2021. Like he was getting a lot of hype because he would have a really cool hit now and then, and people would think he was playing good. And I was like, well, there's actually two missed tackles for every one of those. So yeah, I mean, he got cut in Jacksonville pretty early as a third-round pick, and he came to New York still having some of those weaknesses, just that boom or bust mentality. and he was a big part of that defense that struggled in 2021. And you could always see that potential, but I never thought he was going to develop this much. I mean, the leap he took last year, I thought he went from, I'll say he was bad in 2021. I think he was. He went from that to average to above average last year. And then this year, he's a legit star this year. More than willing to admit that this year. Just
I have a crazy hot take.
Yeah.
You want to hear it? Just maybe it's not that hot of a take. All right. This is not, I don't want to, how do I phrase this the right way? Through 5 weeks, this is not a dig at Quinnen Williams because I think Quinnen Williams is awesome. He's the Jets' arguably the most important player on defense. Quincy Williams through 5 games has been better than Quinnen Williams. Do you agree with that? Quinnen Williams has been great. Like, that's not a dig at Quinnen. That's just how good Quincy Williams has been. That's just how good big brother or little brother, depending on how you look at it, has been this year. I mean, they're both top 5 at their position, if not top 3 at this point. I'm just saying, like, that's the jump that Quincy Williams is playing, where it's actually a discussion who's been better this season, Quinnen or Quincy. Quinnen's been awesome. Deserves all the money. That's not a shot.
Could say that. I think you could say that. I mean, Quinnen's been really good in terms the stacks haven't been quite to the same level. But
plays a more important position.
Pressures have been there. Like you said, more important position. His run defense is consistently good. Just hasn't quite popped to the level he did last year. But when you watch the film, he's like kind of just as consistent.
Yeah.
It's just the splash plays. But Quincy obviously does have a ton of those splash plays. So it's similar, but just the fact that it is a discussion is the big win. Because I really think you can make the case Quincy is the number 1 linebacker this year.
I watched Fred Warner last night. He looked pretty damn good. So maybe I'll stick to top 3 for now.
Yeah, he's up there. I mean, like he's number 1 in defensive stops this year, which are, total tackles is cool. You can look at that, but sometimes you get a tackle on a 50-yard run and you chase the guy out of bounds. But defensive stops, like purely tackles that are important and wins for the defense, he's number 1 in those. His pass rushing has been, like, as a blitzer, we've seen how effective he's been in that role. And the missed tackles are way down. He's not making those mistakes anymore. You see better angles in his pursuit. You see him able to throw moves on blockers in space. Like, there was one play in this game, like a 2 or 3 yard loss in the second half, where he didn't make the tackle, but he pursued from the backside and he beat a guard in space, like with a little rip move that you would use as a pass rusher. And he blew up the play and he forced the cutback. I think Al Woods got the tackle credit. So there's just so much more fundamentals and discipline to his game. I think you could see that he's really learned a lot from playing next to CJ Mosley and from being coached by Saleh and Ulbrich, great linebacker coaches. So
don't forget Ruddy.
Has been really great to see. Yeah, Mike Rudenberg as well in there. Obviously deserves credit. So, it's been cool to see that development.
The Jets
these past few years.
The Jets have never had a linebacker like him. I mean, they've had, and to be fair, like his style of linebacker, I guess, is more of a new age thing. But they've had like the Thumpers, the David Harrises, Bart Scotts, Mo Lewis. They haven't had a guy who has the speed that Quincy Williams has, the pass coverage ability that Quincy Williams has, coupled with, the hit power. I mean, he's an all-around modern day 21st century linebacker. I mean, there aren't many of those guys around in the league. And how many times since you've been watching, Michael, have the Jets been playing the Patriots and they call a little halfback wheel and the Jets have some linebacker who looks like he's running a 5-second 40-yard dash and it's just right over his head, 40-yard game.
Neville Hewitt.
Yeah, the Neville Hewitt. Like, yeah, let's rattle off some. I mean, David Harris towards the end of his career was pretty damn slow. The Neville Hewitts. Demario Davis before he became a good player somehow. Avery Williamson's. I guess they drafted Darren Lee to kind of be that new age linebacker, but that didn't really work out. Quincy has been unbelievable this year. I mean, top 5 player for the Jets this season.
He is what they dreamed Darren Lee to be. That's exactly what he looks like, kind of.
Well, Darren Lee didn't really have the. I don't know. I
don't know. I think this is like the idealistic vision. Obviously, he didn't come close to playing like that. I'm not saying he did, but this is like that new age linebacker. Yeah,
and also shout out to Will McDonald for that little spin move at the end to free him up. I think Will McDonald deserves a few more reps. They deactivated Carl Lawson in this game, so it seems like either Lawson or Woods is going to be inactive depending on the matchup. There's a few places we could go here next because I mentioned the inactives, and I kind of want to go to Dalvin Cook next, but let's stick with the defense.
We're on the defense, we could just kind of hit.
Let's stick with the defense.
Defensive points.
Let's stick with the defense. Thank you for keeping me on track
quick
here.
Bryce Huff thing. Like, let's address that real quick. I mean, they're finally getting it right with Bryce Huff because he was too good last year to play just passing downs, and I get that it worked. You know, he was well rested. He didn't have to think about the run, and that contributed to him performing as well as he did, but it still doesn't fully explain him being that dominant to the point where, you know, his pressure rates and all that were at last year. He's just that good. He should be playing more reps throughout the game. Like, even if he's not the greatest run defender of all time, he's not so bad to where it's like, do not put that guy in the field for a run play.
No,
and in this game,
good.
And last week, like we've seen why it's okay to do that. He had that huge sack on a first down play in this game. That's a play that doesn't happen before last week because he would never be on the field on first down. But he's playing more early down reps. Last week, he played his highest snap rate between his last 2 seasons. It was 39%. Then they played more. He played more this week. He was up to 44%. More than half of his snaps were on first and second down, which, again, shows you they're trying to get him on the field more by putting him out there, even if it's not an obvious passing situation. And he's rewarding them. He had 7 pressures last game against the Chiefs. That was his career high. Then he had 8 this week, beating his career high again. So he's showing you that with a higher count of snaps, with a bigger role, he's able to maintain that efficiency. So he's not just a small role guy who's going to play 5 snaps a game and he's efficient because he's rested. He can play more snaps and still be just as dominant and just extrapolate that production over more reps. So it's been really cool to see Bryce Huff fully unleash these past 2 games, just constantly causing havoc. And seeing 47 out there on a more consistent basis, not just on the money downs, has been a big boost these past 2 games. So credit to them for that, but keep it going. Keep it going. He was at 44% this game. I don't see any reason he can't continue climbing higher than that.
Yeah, and I'd like to see a little bit more Will McDonald. I think he's just a guy who needs a little bit more reps because that spin move is lethal. He's a guy that's going to have to add on some weight and some size in the offseason, and I think he has a better year next year. But McDonald can be that Bryce Huff role from last year, just that true pass rusher, doesn't play anything else except third downs. They're getting him in there a little bit, but I'd like to see a little bit more Will McDonald. Last thing,
one more crazy Bryce Huff stat.
Yeah,
so he's 60th in pass rush snaps among edge rushers this year, okay? He's at 87. So 59 edge rushers have played more pass rush snaps than him. But he's 7th in pressures among edge rushers with the 60th most pass rush snaps.
That's absurd.
There we go. That's
absurd.
Tough sounds there. But yeah, totally absurd. He's got the highest pressure rate among edge rushers, 29%. So he's on another level right now. And another guy who deserves credit in this game, Jermaine Johnson, finally made some pass rush noise. This was his best pass rushing game. He had a bull rush for a really good sack. Then the strip sack he had from behind, that was a sneaky important play because Cortland Sutton was wide open on a little scramble drill. He was able to separate, and Russell Wilson was going to hit him for the first down. I think it was 3rd and 14. But JJ chased it from behind, got that strip sack, and that play exemplifies what he's always going to bring you in the passing game. Even if he's not the greatest win rate guy or pressure guy, just the hustle that he brings, the speed and the length, he's going to be able to make those types of plays that other guys wouldn't be able to make. He's always going to bring that chase down ability. So it's a nice skill he brings to the table. So JJ in this game, really liked his performance.
Last thing, because you were talking about Bryce Huff, I realized I had one more thing to say on Quincy Williams that is impressive and I think this is a credit to his conditioning because you think about Mile High, that altitude, guys get tired, they're out there, last drive of the game. The fact that he still looked that explosive at the end of a game in that altitude is just a credit to the crazy work that he's put in and the shape that he's in, because you just think about all the other players in that field looked gassed, and yet Quincy Williams is flying around faster than anybody, offense or defense. So I just think that's something to note just in terms of the work that he's put in. And the other thing that I think deserves a lot of credit is the secondary, because there were a number of plays where the defensive line didn't really win that fast. Maybe the Broncos went max protect. Maybe they weren't winning their matchups, but Wilson was forced to hold onto the ball for 3, 4, 5 seconds. And that's on coverage. I mean, that's on Sauce Gardner, who I think had an unbelievable game. Like you said, Tony Adams bounced back in the second half. I think the safeties are all right, but Breece Hall deserves a ton of credit for coming in. You know, I'm ashamed to say that I thought the Jets might cut him in training camp just because he kind of felt like one of those guys that might be in the doghouse. Starter in 2021, we thought he played all right, and then benched not benched, more so they just brought DJ Reed in, drafted Sauce Gardner. He's an afterthought. He seems like Eccles even passed him on the depth chart, but he played awesome. I mean, not even just the scoop and score touchdown, but he was not a liability in coverage, which is, I think, the biggest fear we had when DJ Reed was out. So what did you kind of make of the secondary? Then we'll hop into the offense, but last part of the defense. Another Sauce Gardner masterclass?
Yeah, I think it can definitely go down as another feather in his cap, another classic performance in a way that was less flashy than some of the games he had last year. But if you look at the film on the back end, there were a lot of plays where Sauce, and not just him, but really the whole secondary, was allowing the pressure to get home because they were clamping down. Like the pass rush had good moments in this game, but there were plenty of sacks and hits, even the safety that Al Woods got, which, we got to give a shout out to Al Woods, because I come on here every week and say he can't do anything in the passing game, and he gets a safety in this game. So
coverage safety.
Credit to him for that, but it was a coverage safety. And honestly, Wilson should have checked it down. There was a check down right in front of him, but the back end coverage, I think Sauce had a one-on-one with Judy. Then Hall and Whitehead were bracketing Sutton, if I have that right. But the back end coverage was really good on that. And a lot of the third down plays, great coverage across the board. The linebackers, too, Mosley and Quincy, were in this game doing a really good job of, like, when they had to cover the flat or a tight end on a sit or something like that, they were on point, denying throws for Russell Wilson. So coverage was really good in this game. And I think, honestly, it would probably outplayed the pass rush because it teed up a lot of those pass rush plays that we saw by first covering well and buying time for the pass rush. So really good job, with Breece Hall filling in there. We've said that, he's a good depth piece and an ideal guy to have it as your first outside corner coming in. And I think in this game, he really showed that. It was a solid performance for him.
All right, let's talk about the offense. Let's start with Zach Wilson. To me, Michael, this was like the epitome of 2010 Sanchez, which is what we've been asking for.
Yeah, it's a good comp. You brought that up before we started recording. I think that is a really good way to put it.
Dominant defense. They ran for like 230 yards on the ground, and Sanchez would manage the game, and then he'd make a few key throws. People forget Sanchez had some nice throws in some key spots, not just in the playoffs, but like big third down throws. And that's what you saw from Zach Wilson. Did a nice job managing the game, made some big plays. Jets ran the ball well, played great defense. This is definitely, you can't argue that Zach Wilson has improved. Is he amazing? No. Is this a great game? No, but this is a good game, and this is what we wanted from Zach. We've said it from the beginning. If Zach can give the Jets 20th ranked quarterback play, the Jets can make the playoffs with the talent on this team. And I think yesterday he gave him about league average quarterback play. He's got the scrambling upside. He can make some wow throws with his arm, but clearly he's taken some steps in terms of his mechanics. The accuracy's been much better in terms of his internal clock. He's getting the ball out fast. He's getting to his checkdowns. And in terms of the mental, it seems like he has a better idea pre-snap where to go with the ball. It seems like he's a better fit with Hackett. Like, he doesn't seem as overwhelmed on game days. Part of that's maybe just being a veteran, but also, like, they said that in the broadcast, that he said that, last week against the Chiefs, that was the first time he ever felt a coach that in the NFL that believed in him, which is quite the indictment on Michael Floor. But, obviously things didn't go as planned the first 2 years. Zach Wilson was probably the worst quarterback in the league the last 2 years, but it's not debatable that he's shown clear signs of improvement. Were there some plays on the left on the field? There were a couple. Was it perfect? No, but it was damn good. It was one of his better games. He made some big throws in some big spots, and he steered the Jets to victory. So what more can you ask for? Overall, what did you make of Zach's performance against Denver?
I thought this was a nice way to follow up the Chiefs game. I don't think anyone will argue it was quite on that level because, it was a different game plan, game flow. Last week, I think they really counted on him to carry them, and he was able to do that, and it was the first time it really felt like he has done that in the NFL. This game was different. Run game was outstanding, so they leaned on that and kind of put Zach on the back seat. So he didn't have to carry them as much, make as many wild throws, but when they did count on him, he, for the most part, really delivered. And this is right up there as one of his most efficient performances, I would say, in the league. Chiefs, a little more wow. That was consistent as well, but there's a little more wow to that. This one,
oh my God,
just consistency,
oh
efficiency.
My God.
What?
Torn Achilles for AVT.
Oh my God. Thanks, Ian Rappaport, for the optimism.
Damn, we were so high on the podcast, and then he walked off the field with a torn Achilles like that. Let me delete that tweet I had where I was like, I don't think this is a torn Achilles. God.
Who reported it?
Rappaport.
I'm not seeing it on the
Rappaport.
Oh, he blocked me.
He got blocked by Rappaport. Delete tweet. Oh
yes.
My God. Well, that puts a stinker on the pod. All right, we'll come back to Zach. Let's go. Let's just to carry on with what we'll go back to Zach in a second. All the optimism in this podcast is ruined. ABT, first reaction. I mean, back-to-back brutal season-ending injuries in Denver. Wow, I guess I'll leave the intro the way it is, but I was like, wow, the Jets finally had a win, where they make it out without a catastrophic injury. I guess him and Rodgers can rehab. Can we get ABT in the speed bridge?
I just feel so bad for him. I mean, the same way, the polar opposite of Breece going back there and getting that redemption, doing what he did. Now ABT goes back and has another season-ending injury. I just feel terrible for him because, I mean, like, he's such a promising player, legitimate all-pro upside, and second straight season-ending injury. This is tough. There's no way around it. I mean, he was playing really good at right tackle. It felt like they had found their ideal offensive line combination finally. And just the versatility he gives you, that really helps you navigate the season because, this guy gets hurt. ABT can play so many different roles for you, and you could mix and match and pick out what works best because of that versatility. But you lose that flexibility now. It's a big hit. It's a big hit. There's really no other way to put it. I mean, I will say, I think Max Mitchell came in and played pretty decently in this game. One of the better games he's probably played. I mean, he did a nice job in pass pro. He was key on that touchdown run by Breece Hall. But, no way to sugarcoat it. This hurts. But let's hope they've developed Max Mitchell up to this point.
All right, well, he can join Rodgers in California on the rehab. That's brutal. Like you said, I feel bad for him as a player because he's so talented. And 2 years back-to-back where he's been playing at a top level at tackle, and then he gets injured. I want to go back and watch the play that he got injured because I don't think it even looked like much. I can't believe he walked off the field. I mean, I guess some people just Rodgers said he just kind of got drop foot, like he couldn't feel anything. And then, but the way he was walking, it didn't look like an Achilles at all. Like he was moving the foot. That sucks, man. That really sucks. Like you said, Mitchell looked all right.
If the Jets have a game in Denver next year, do you just bench him for that game?
I hope they don't have a game in Denver. Jesus. Man, they just got 2 wins and 2 torn Achilles. And then 3 losses. That's the Jets season so far? Are you fucking kidding me? Who are their best players? At least Joe Tippmann's.
We've yet to have a win where someone didn't have a season-ending Achilles injury.
That's just great. At least Joe Tippmann has been
either a loss or a win with a loss. So basically 0-4.
It's just terrible.
This is great pod. I mean, the silence is appropriate right now.
Yeah, we're just digesting it. I really didn't think
probably how you reacted when you listened to this. So
I saw that tweet
that's
that
tough. Oh my God.
They even said they were like, "There's optimism. It's not an Achilles. Normally, they know entering the
great
MRI.
Reporting, Rap Sheet. I'm glad you blocked me. I don't want to see your terrible tweets. There's optimism. Why don't you shut up until the news is out there?
I blocked from Rappaport
because I kept replying when he would make stupid, pointless quote tweets. Like he just put an eye emoji quote tweet on something. I'd say like, "Thank you so much for that. That really added so much to this conversation."
Nice.
I did that a ton.
Sassy Michael Nania.
Obviously, he's a sensitive man. So.
Well, I mean, the O-line played all right without him still, but Denver's front seven sucks, so the true test will come next week against the Eagles. That really fucking blows to lose AVT. But, hey, they still got Becton. They got Joe Tippmann. Those are the 2 studs. Mitchell, we'll see if he can develop into one, and then
Max Mitchell's going to have to block the Eagles front seven. Oh, my God.
Mitchell was all right last week.
Let's hope for the best. He, like I said, he did okay. But, Jonathan Cooper and whoever else the Broncos have, not quite the Eagles.
All right, back to Zach. Let's try to be positive. Let's finish this podcast out on a positive note. let's talk about Zach Wilson a little bit more. I think the other thing that's really stood out to me, I wonder how much weight he's added. This is so hard to go back into like just regular podcasting, but okay. I wonder how much weight he's added since his rookie year because he obviously looks bigger, but he's taken some freaking shots this year and he gets up. So I think his toughness deserves a little shout out because every game it seems like he's just getting thrown to the ground or rocked and he pops back up. So I think that's a credit to his resiliency. And like you said, you know, they didn't really, it was a different game plan. They didn't throw as much on first down. I mean, they did a little bit, that really nice play action throw on a crosser to Garrett Wilson in the fourth quarter. But the front seven is really the weakness of this Broncos defense, and they took full advantage of it running the football. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to go back into podcasting, but what do you make? I know we just talked on Zach, but any other thoughts on Zach and maybe just the offense as a whole, how they called this game? I saw you were getting frustrated that they weren't calling as many play action passes on first down.
It was frustrating. I think it cost some points in this game because like the run game was great, but I think like you already come into games with Zach Wilson with teams, you know, saying, hey, go ahead and beat us. We're going to stack the box and play some aggressive coverage. And then you run the ball well on top of that, which in most games hasn't happened. But in this game, they were able to do that. So you have all this stuff going for you that you can pass the ball well on first down. And when they did, it worked really well. Like we got that 30-yard throw to Garrett Wilson in the second half off play action. And overall, these were the first down numbers for Zach Wilson. 8 of 10 for 78 yards, 2 scrambles for 17 yards, and he got sacked once, but it was only a 2-yard loss. So he averaged 7.2 yards per play on first down. So I really would have liked for them to have called more play action passes on first down because they would have had some opportunities to hit, you know, a big time throw over the top to where they could have scored a deep touchdown and not had to deal with the red zone. There were, I think, especially in those like edge of red zone plays or like 10-yard away area, they would run the ball after run their way down the field. They would run the ball there and then it would run out at that point and the defense would clamp down on the run. Then it was third and long. Then they would pass. And oftentimes no one was open in the red zone. So I think they were a little too lenient on that run game because I think Zach played well and showed you that you could trust him to throw if he needed to. This wasn't like last year's Broncos game or those games at points last year where it was like, you know, he's not showing you enough to where you would trust him to throw it. He did play well in this game. So would have liked to have seen that. And I would, even if they continue running the ball this way going forward, I think they should be more aggressive with that first down play action passing to potentially get some of those shots so you can hit those home runs and not always have to, you know, play red zone offense. But looking at the red zone, there were some plays that you and I saw that maybe Zach had opportunities. Some of them were plays where, like, you don't blame him for not getting it, but it would have been a great play if he could, like, you know, he is reading Garrett Wilson on a drag and Conklin has a busted coverage and he's wide open. He throws it to Garrett. Maybe could have seen Conklin. You don't kill him for it, but it's an opportunity missed. There were some plays like that. Yeah, it would have been his
third read.
Yeah, so there's some. I think that's like the difference between Zach Wilson and what we want him to be, which is, you know, what did we say, 20th to 24th quarterback?
Yeah,
that level of quarterback play, and an Aaron Rodgers who is able to see the entire field and make crazy plays like that, where that's outside the structure of the read, but he's capitalizing on it because he's that, you know, good with his eyes and vision. So there were some plays like that I think led to field goals instead of touchdowns. There was the throw to Garrett Wilson that was, you know, not the most ideal, but it wasn't the most open throw in the world. The one on the left back corner of the end zone that he missed a little bit. Are there any other plays that come to mind that he missed?
He had the screen where he fumbled the ball.
Oh yeah,
where it's like he should have just thrown it to Carter. Yeah, he had a few fumbles that luckily the Jets.
A couple of fumbles, so the ball security too. Luckily they kept both of them, but both of those fumbles, he held the ball a little bit too much. The interception, I think you and I both agree. As far as interceptions go, that's on the very low spectrum. Like, that was the right read. He had a one-on-one with Garrett Wilson. Yes, it was Patrick Surtain, but no one else was open there. And third down, shoot your shot with your best player. That's what we always ask for. Not the greatest throw. Not the greatest.
On the wrong shoulder.
You definitely want that. Yeah, you want that on the other shoulder, a little bit higher. So not the greatest, but it was catchable. I think Garrett Wilson has made tougher catches than that before. It did end up going through his hands. And either way, that's not a ball that gets intercepted very often. It was a ridiculous catch. He grabbed it in his legs, and it, again, went through Garrett Wilson. So not really an interception-worthy throw, even though it ended up that way. It was kind of just a bad break, but more just a, not ideal throw. So I don't blame him too much for that one. But overall, I think the biggest thing you could say at this point, now having these last 2 games, I don't know if I would have praised him as much for it after the Patriots. Although I think there's one thing you can still have said. You still could have said after the Patriots game, and now it's only been further proven with these last 2 games. His accuracy this season has been much better.
Yeah.
There are other things that, still a little inconsistent. He can improve on, like some of the things we just mentioned, but pure accuracy, way better. Those missed layups are gone. He's not missing screens anymore. Throws in the flat, these easy throws, he's making those. Like, and you and I were talking about it when we were watching through some of the film. Like, there are routine plays he makes, whether it's a check down or just little throw to the flat or whatever. And like, it's become routine now, but when you go back to the way he was playing the first 2 seasons, you realize how much progress that is for him, because things like that were so difficult for him.
Not even just checkdowns, like little first down throw, like 6-yard, 7-yard throws.
Yeah, like little out routes with like a 5-yard out or like a slant that he would throw over a guy's head. So like routine throws are routine for him now.
He can play quarterback now.
Them. And I think there were more big time throws in there too, because like he had some highlights throughout his career, but they were pretty rare. Like there wasn't a huge Zach Wilson highlight reel, but now you look at these past 2 games this year. Yeah, the play action to Garrett, the touch on that, throwing that out was tremendous.
The laser to Conklin.
He had multiple out route throws. The laser to Conklin that was just outside the reach of the linebacker, and he went through multiple progressions on that play.
It is funny, and we were talking about this though, like the margin of error is so small between that being what a throw by Zach Wilson and then that getting picked off and being what a disaster, this guy sucks. And there's a number of plays like that throughout everybody's career, but specifically his. And normally it goes the other way. But it is just funny to think about, like, just it's literally, I mean, what, like a foot outside of that linebacker's hands?
Yeah. I mean, that's like the margin that I think a guy like Zach Wilson has the ability to, come out on the better end of if he's confident, because he has that arm strength. So when he's slinging it with rhythm and confidence, I think you could see some of the throws like we saw in this game. But then you look at his down moments when you get that hesitancy, then that's when I think that margin gets closed and it ends up as an interception instead of a tight window completion. But I think we're seeing a more confident guy right now. And, I just want to give him so much credit for these last 2 games, because like I was burying him 2 weeks ago and I think it was deserved. The Patriots game was bad and I'll stand by it. But, his back was against the wall going into that Chiefs game. Simeon was coming in. I said Simeon's better than him.
Simeon's not doing this.
I don't think Simeon, he definitely doesn't have that Chiefs game, and I don't think he has this game either with some of the throws Zach Wilson was making in big spots. So all the credit to him. He's still got to keep it going. It's only 2 games. He could, to use your expression, turn into a pumpkin this week against the Eagles. He could go right back down to earth. It's only 2 games. Got to keep it going. But he's played well these last 2 games. He's showing legitimate strides that you can notice throughout the course of the season, and he's trending in a good direction. Just gotta keep it going for me to fully buy into it.
Yeah, the big impact of the AVT injury, obviously, it could affect the run game for sure because he's so good in the run game. But they do have Tippmann.
I got into my Zach Wilson thing. I forgot about it. But we had
the AVT injury. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, well, the only reason I was going to say is because one of the big improvements is that he's actually had an offensive line that he's trusted so far. And look, Max Mitchell did a nice job. I mean, Denver's front 7 and pass rushers suck, so it's not the biggest test in the world, but he did hold up. But Zach Wilson's trusted his offensive line, and he's kept his eyes down the field, and he hasn't looked to scramble within 1 second. And that's the big impact that you could see if Mitchell turns into a turnstile. They should get Dwayne Brown back at some point. I forgot about him even existing, but I don't even know if I'd want to move Becton from left tackle. I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. I guess the hope now is that Max Mitchell truly develops. But with Zach Wilson, the thing is that's evident, his confidence has definitely grown. I noticed him after it was like the post-game or post-practice press conference on Wednesday, and he was talking, and he just seemed like a totally different guy. And then you hear in the broadcast that he went like 19 of 20 in practice on Wednesday, and like not that practice stats mean that much, but he's clearly clicking. Like I think he's starting to hit a different gear, and I don't know how far that's going to take him or what that necessarily means, but his confidence is rolling. And I think a game like this against Denver, where he follows up the best performance of his career with a capable performance where he plays quarterback like an adult and the Jets win and he makes some throws, that's just going to continue to build his confidence. He's starting to feel like, okay, I can do this. I'm an NFL quarterback. yeah, it's year 3. We're babying him, sure, but I think this type of game was big for his confidence and the offense's confidence as a whole, because I think they haven't really been able to run the football like they've wanted to. In this game, they definitely were able to. Again, bad Denver front seven, but still, I like how they mixed in some man gap stuff. I mean, you saw that on that Breece Hall massive touchdown run, which shout out Max Mitchell. He had a great block on that. Shout out Joe Tippmann with the massive pancake.
Yep.
So they'll still be able to, the AVT injury sucks, but they'll still be able to run the football. My concern is just, if Max Mitchell's a turnstile and Zach Wilson starts to take his eyes off, downfield and starts looking at the rush, and that's the nightmare. But I think Mitchell showed in that second half. He showed some promise. Just have to buy into that. What else do you want to talk about here? I guess last thing would be, who else deserves a shout out? Oh, we do have a big topic to talk about, but you know who deserves a shout out? Alan Lazard.
Greg Zuerlein.
Greg the third leg has been awesome, but Alan Lazard, great Robin. We were kind of talking about this, like, is he a good second option? And maybe, if they have a better slot option than Randall Cobb, we'll see about Xavier Gibson. We'll get to Mecole Hardman next. It could, it would help this offense even more. But Lazard, he does all the dirty work in terms of the blocking, the rub routes, clear out routes. He's a great jump ball guy. He seems like he's been great for Zach's confidence. I'd like to see him unleash in the red zone a little bit. But I just think Lazard deserves a bit of a shout out, because I think that he's been an awesome addition to this Jets offense. He's the type of piece you want, a big 6'5" guy who can do all that dirty work. And he's helped a lot on those screens. The receiver blocking's been a lot better. So I think he's been an upgrade over Corey Davis. I seriously wonder what this offense would have looked like if Corey stayed and Rodgers got hurt, like what the distribution of snaps would have been. But overall, I think Lazard deserves a shout out. Before we get to Hardman, the other thing I wanted to talk about, what do you think of the red zone play calling? Because it did seem like there was, like last week, like you said, they put it on Zach's shoulders to win that game. This game, it did feel like they reverted a little bit into don't make the mistake, Zach, which I get. Denver's a worse team. They were able to run the football all over Denver. Their defense was dominating Denver in the second half. So I get the thought process, especially when they started to play with the lead. It's like, let's just keep getting points. Let's get that 8-point lead. But what did you make of some of the conservative red zone play calling? Because there were times where it felt like the Jets could have tried to push for 6, but instead they were settling for, let's just run the ball and get 3 points here.
No, I didn't like it. I mean, like we said, I think the way they were able to run down the field was great, but there were multiple times when they got down either into the red zone or, again, like around that 10, 15-yard area where it was like, okay, this is the perfect time to call play action, throw the ball over their head for a touchdown. But they overdid it with the running a few times, and it caught up to them, and they got themselves into third and longs. Even a few times, like, okay, if you want to try a first down run and then go pass in second down, you could do that. But there were multiple times where they did run, pass, with 2 straight runs, despite a first down run not working. So overdid it, and I was surprised to see that after how confident they were last week in Wilson at many points. Maybe trailing in that game contributed to that, trailing 17-0. But and obviously this game, different score situation, so that definitely could have played into it, but I don't think it should. I think, and maybe now it'll change that he's had 2 solid games in a row. He's showing you that you can trust him to throw on first down, on second down, in any situation, and, have a balanced offense. So would like to see more first down passing. But I will say, though, there are some things from a creativity standpoint that Hackett deserves a lot of credit for in this game. A lot more pre-snap motion, that's for sure. Gibson played more snaps. He was motioning a lot. Garrett Wilson motioned a lot. They motioned on the play where Breece Hall scored, and it was a huge part of making that score happen because the movement that's created by the motion, Breece Hall ended up running straight through that. So it helped the run game. It contributed on the big pass that Garrett Wilson caught, the 30-yard or so pass. He was in motion on that play. So getting pre-snap motion in, that was great. The run game, there was some creativity to that. We saw you and I were looking at it before we started recording this, but not just outside zone. There was some gap and power stuff in there, some misdirection, some cool stuff in the run game. So there was a lot of good stuff going on. Even like when they did throw the ball, we saw play action. We saw getting Wilson on the move. We saw various different things that were working well. I just would like to see them trust him more on those early downs. And I think if they did that, they could have had a bigger game in terms of finishing some of these drives, because they did put up over 400 yards, but a lot of field goal drives. So got to punch it in. And I think they could do that by not just being better in the red zone, but hitting some big plays to, maybe not even have to get into the red zone if they can hit those big plays through the air.
Let's talk about Hardman, because that was a pre-game situation people were very upset about. I think this situation's getting overblown a little bit. I do think Hardman is a solid player. He obviously brings speed. I would rather see him than Randall Cobb, absolutely. Although I will say it does seem like Hardman is kind of their Garrett Wilson insurance. Every time he's been out there, a lot of times he's playing outside. He's not really getting that many slot reps. I mean, he's not getting that many reps at all. But I think Gibson has supplanted him on the depth chart in terms of like backup slot receiver. And Hardman at this point is, if Garrett goes down, that's their guy. And I think they could find a role for him. Cobb, talking about Lazard doing the dirty work. Cobb's entire role is just doing dirty work, clear out routes, blocking, etc. Veteran presence. I think it's getting overblown a little bit. I mean, he's getting paid $4 million, and we're acting like the Jets are benching like Tyreek Hill or something. Like every team has a fourth receiver that they're paying $5, $6, $7 million. It just doesn't play that much. He's getting paid $4 million. I mean, Dalvin Cook's basically getting paid 2x that. And I think he's a good player. The only reason he's inactive today is not because people are trying to run like there must be something going on behind the scenes. I don't think there is. I think, first of all, Rodgers went down, the whole offense changed. He's getting paid $4 million. Gibson supplanted him on the depth chart. Week 1, you have to start giving that rookie reps, just given the offseason that he's had. I think that this inactive was mainly just due to injuries and needing special team help. I mean, they activated Irvin Charles. You saw what he did on the first punt of the game. And he'll get his opportunity towards the end of the season. I mean, it could come sooner rather than later, but injuries will hit. He'll get an opportunity. I agree that they should try to find a role for him, try to get him some of those snaps, but Gibson is the guy that they want to give those jet sweeps to, those receiver screens to. I understand Hardman has that game-breaking speed, but so does Gibson. I mean, watch Gibson on that Breece Hall touchdown run. He's right there with him. So kind of what do you make of the Hardman situation? I feel like the media is kind of overblowing it. I mean, that's what the New York media is always going to do. They're going to sensationalize everything. When things are good, things are amazing. When things are bad, things are horrific. They try to find little storylines, things to dramatize. There we go.
Dramatize.
Thank you. And Hardman's situation just seems like that. Like he'll play, but he's a backup right now. So what do you kind of make of that?
I mean, I feel like I've contributed to that. I kind of criticize it every single week, including this week. I mean, I do think there is a degree of, maybe he didn't grasp the playbook or fit the scheme as well as they thought, something going on that they don't feel like telling us that is contributing to it. Because, I mean, the contract they gave him it's small, but it isn't nothing. And they were even talking him up above what he was probably, what his actual level of play, because Robert Saleh was saying we want to expand the route tree and all that stuff. So they were already talking him up more. So I think even in relation to that, it's surprising. But I mean, what I've kind of come to see it as is I think they've seen Xavier Gibson kind of develop into what they're planning to do with him, because they didn't anticipate an undrafted free agent breaking out like that. But obviously they've been impressed with him to the point where I think he's kind of filling a lot of the roles that they figured Hardman would. So that's how I think I see it. Gibson kind of developing into that role. Still think Hardman could do more than Cobb can, because I know he's a veteran, dirty work, whatever, but I mean, he doesn't catch the ball. He doesn't do anything. So I think Hardman in those sort of roles can be more effective because he has the speed to just change the way the defense plays you. Because you see Cobb on the field, it doesn't change anything about the way you call a defense. You're comfortable manning him up. You're comfortable doing whatever you want because there's no specific aspect of Randall Cobb's game that I have to game plan for. But Mecole Hardman, for all his faults, has speed that you have to account for. And I think it changes the way that you play defense. So I still think there are snaps to be given to him, but at this point, I think I'm okay just realizing, all right, I think Gibson kind of developed into what we were picturing Hardman to be, and that's okay. It's not Hardman doesn't have the biggest contract in the world, so I don't think it's the biggest deal at this point necessarily, but I think there's still value to be had with him.
Yeah, people are like upset about. They're like, "There's a waste of cap." It's like he's getting paid $4 million in depth at receiver is never a bad thing. Like, just wait for somebody to get hurt, and then you're gonna be thankful you have a guy like that. Like you said, it's just Gibson's outplayed him. And like Cobb is a favorite of Hackett. He's does a lot of the dirty work. I would rather see Hardman in that role, but it's just a numbers game for him being inactive. And then Gibson's outperformed him so far, but he's going to get an opportunity. And people upset about the $4 million on a guy like Hardman, who is great insurance to have. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, quickly, I would comment on what you said about Lazard. I agree with you. I really like how Lazard has played this year. It feels like he comes through every time that he's targeted. He's made some really good catches, contested catches.
A few drops.
A couple, but he had the toe tapping out catch on the out route on the drive that they eventually botched. And that's another thing we should throw in with the Zach Wilson review. Obviously, that was the worst play. Inexcusable. Whether that's him or someone else didn't do their job, it falls on him ultimately. So that's a negative as well to throw in for Zach Wilson. But yeah, I like how Lazard has played. He's been what I hoped he would be, which is a guy who doesn't get a huge volume of targets, but when he does get targeted, he comes through with big plays. And he's done that so far. Right now, he's averaging 10.1 yards a target, which is great. It's the best of his career to this point. So he's done that. And then his blocking is outstanding. Just screen game, run game. He does a lot of different things well, even if it's just, scramble play like that Conklin play. Lazard got involved in that. So his blocking is making impact all over the field, and he's coming through with the catches. I still think it would be good to have a number 2 receiver next to Garrett Wilson who could win more, because Lazard isn't a big time separator. And there are some plays where you see Gibson. Yeah, I think Gibson has the potential to be that guy. So we'll see as his snaps go up each week. So there are some plays where you see maybe having Lazard on the field for 95% of the snaps isn't the greatest, because there are some times where you would like a number 2 guy who can win, because he's not a huge route winner. There are some plays where he gets clamped, but he's made a lot of big plays and come through when he's targeted, which is what I like.
I'm reading that AVT played another play after tearing his Achilles. Jeez, that's absurd.
Wow.
Last thing before we get out of here. Last thing before we get out of here.
He'll come back strong.
Yeah, he gets rehab with Rodgers. Maybe he'll be back for playoffs. Last thing, special teams. We always forget about special teams in this podcast, but how could we? We've had Hennessy, Morstead. We're just waiting for Greg.
We can give them their flowers. I think we credit
Morstead is the best puncher the Jets have had in my lifetime.
We're the only podcast that had a punter and a long snapper on.
We're waiting for the kicker. We're going to get the kicker on. Morstead's actually going to be back on this season at some point. He's been awesome. I said it when we brought him on that Morstead is going to directly lead to some safeties this year, because he's going to pin teams back inside the 5, and then the Jets have that pass rush, and they're going to get after it. Lo and behold, it happens. So Morstead's been awesome. Irvin Charles deserves a lot of credit for that. Gibson muffing the punt was blah, but he was looking into the sun. Whatever. Don't make it a habit.
Fumbled punt as well.
Oh, and he fumbled the punt too. Yes, back-to-back fumbles for Gibson. So got to clean that up. And then Zerline's been automatic. So I just wanted to shout out the special teams. They've been awesome this season. All right, I'll do the plugs.
Great, just especially the pin punts.
Oh yeah. I'll do the plugs. If you have anything else, we'll spit it out. But you can follow us at TYJPod on Twitter, Michael_Nania, myself, Ben W. Blessington. Go to jetsxfactor.com. Best place to go for Jets content. Please rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. Helps out the pod a ton. Subscribe to some of the other Jets X Factor pods. I'm off my game. I'm trying to subscribe to the Jets X Factor YouTube. I think that's it. Michael, last thoughts.
Well, that's definitely a bummer to throw on top of this win.
I know. I just can't catch a break.
What more can you say than that?
Can't catch a break.
That's tough, but that's football. Got to fight. Got to step up. Next man up.
Get him back with Rodgers next year.
Go beat the Eagles.
Go beat the Eagles. All right, we'll do our pregame pod. That'll be out Friday. I know we had some people who were upset we didn't get the pregame pod out until Saturday. Apologies for that. We'll get that out Friday. Talking the Eagles game, a big chance for the Jets to steal an upset. I'm very upset about that Pats loss, because that's a game the Jets definitely should have won. They should be 3-2. But hey, you lose a game, you should win. You make up for it by winning a game you should lose. They have an opportunity to do that at home against the Eagles next week, a team they've never beaten. So previewing that game, that'll come out on Friday. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Have a great week. Victory Monday. AVT injury sucks, but hey, a win is a win. Thank you everybody for listening. Have a great week. Go Jets.